Well, I'm not a minister, and most people are not. Hey there, good people. This is Joanna with the Harmonious.Balance channel. And you know, if there is one thing that can throw me off balance or off kilter, it's when life makes me question my faith. So today I want to talk with you about one of my faith struggles, the idea of religion versus relationship. Now, I've heard the idea of religion versus relationship a bajillion times. Most of the time it goes in one ear and right out the other. Some time ago, though, I watched an interview with Devon Franklin, and if I can find the link to it, then I'll include it in the description box. He was sharing something that I found to be rather odd. So a little backstory. So he's close with Will Smith, and I believe Devon actually started his career with Will's production company. And he was asked by someone, I think a fan or an interviewer, about Will's faith. This person wanted to know if Will was a God-fearing man, and it was like this person wanted permission to say that she was a fan of Will Smith. Now, this was some time before the slap heard around the world. Devon responded something to the effect that Will was a Christian or that he had a relationship with God. I don't remember every single word he said, but he said enough to calm this person's fears, I guess. But what was this person afraid of? What did she need to know to put her at ease about Will Smith? Now, in the video series that I did earlier about unfulfilled desires, I spoke about the question that often gets asked, would you still serve God if you didn't get what you want? Now, serving God and having a relationship with God to me essentially mean the same thing. Well, at least it will for the purposes of this video. So what does it mean to serve God? What does a relationship with God look like? Having grown up in the church and having once lived this sold out Christian life, I have a pretty good idea of the criteria that people are thinking about. But I have to say that I always kind of struggle with certain practices and rituals being the benchmark for what it means to serve God and have a relationship with God. Now, I have no issues with rituals and disciplines as acts of devotion and worship, but I personally never found those things to be meaningful or transformational to my faith. I believe in prayer, but having a disciplined prayer life, not so much. Reading scripture is fine in and of itself, but as I said in the first My Faith Struggles video, How Do You Experience God?, that I don't think we all have to be Bible scholars just to have a relationship with God. Some time ago, years ago, probably 15 years plus now, I remember having a conversation with a friend, and I don't remember exactly what I asked her, but her response was, you just have to lay prostrate on your face before God. And I didn't understand why. And she really couldn't explain why. She just said that that's what everyone does who's trying to get closer to God. And I couldn't bring myself to believe that. I didn't understand why God would require that. Now, one reason I was so skeptical is that years before that, it seemed as if being slain in the spirit was the trending supernatural experience. And I was curious as to what that was like, but I never actually felt overwhelmed enough to ever fall down. So one day I actually visited the Pentecostal church of a white friend, and I was determined to have this experience. The minister was praying for people and folks were falling left and right. My turn. And I fell back in faith, believing that God was somehow going to have some type of encounter with me. I remember being totally conscious the entire time. I had my eyes closed though, but when I opened up my eyes, all I saw was feet walking past me, and I was hoping nobody would step on me. I remember feeling my body laying on this hard concrete floor, and I thought to myself, what am I doing down here? I went ahead and got up and thought to myself, well, there's no need to chase after that again. Now back to what my friend said. I just remember thinking, I'm pretty sure it's the condition of my heart, not the position of my body, that matters most to God. Now let's shift a little bit to music and worship. I remember hearing some women say that it's a turn on to see a man worship God. I find that interesting because that's probably the one act that's easily replicated. In other words, it's easy to be deceived by. But I digress. Well, we've come to accept the musical experience to be the standard for worship. Now, I love music. It's a universal language. There's an energy that music gives unlike any other. Another friend shared a quote with me that I really, really come to love. That math is how God operates and music is God's heart. I connect with that a lot because I'm more of a math person. I have a strength in math, and it has actually helped me understand God a bit more. Now, like I said, I do love music, but has it ever occurred to anyone that perhaps the music we worship to is actually the musicians and singers' act of worship by way of their talent?
What a beautiful name it is, you sing.
It's just very easy to invite others to join in because music has universal appeal, and there's nothing wrong with joining in. But is that the only way to worship? Now, as I continue to grow, mature, and evolve, I started to feel like as I worked utilizing my God-given talents, it felt more like an act of worship. Years later, actually within the last couple of years, it's been since the pandemic, my brother preached about Adam and shared how the words work and worship are actually very similar in their origins. I remember perking up because, like I said, I actually started to lean into this idea. To me, it makes sense that people's experiences with God, their God consciousness, would be very much related to their God-given gifts and talents. And those gifts and talents are tied to their purpose. But before I get to rambling about something else, let me start to close this video out by saying that perhaps we've conflated the discipline and rituals of priests, ministers, monks, etc. as the standard for how to serve God and how to be in a relationship with God. Perhaps these rituals and acts of worship make sense because of their particular purpose and talents as people of the cloth. Perhaps this is why this is an area of faith that I struggle with, because my purpose and talents are not along the lines of ministry, at least not through organized religion. The conversation that I've had with friends all this time makes much more sense now because they're ministers. Well, I'm not a minister, and most people are not. So perhaps we shouldn't judge them by this standard either. Well, that's all I wanted to share today. Let me know in the comments how you would describe your relationship with God. I'd love to hear how you navigate your faith. And this is a place where you can share without fear of judgment. Take care, and I will see you later, good people.